How are you? Good evening.
Kavod Harav, how are you?
Okay, how are you? Good evening.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay, I'm just streaming it on Facebook and we'll get started.
Okay.
Okay, looks like it's going. Okay, looks like it's going.
Kavod Harav is on Facebook.
Yes. Fantastic.
I'm going to share it. It's okay?
Sure, anything you like.
Thank you.
Merrier.
Yes, Baruch Hashem.
How are you, David? Okay, here we go. So we're starting with Lamed Tet 39. Lamed Chet, I'm sorry, 38. So it says like this. You have to see first the tour. Right, so it says in the tour like this. Ve'aseh dalet batim. You have to make 4 compartments there. Me'or echad, from one piece of leather. Me'or behema chayav be'of teorah. As we said, right, it has to be from something kosher, animal or bird. Afilu b'nevela v'tefa. Yeah, we already read this already. We read this before. Even if it's a non-kosher animal, but kosher species, it wasn't slaughtered properly. Okay, so let's see the bit Yosef. So it says Bet Yosef like this. Tanya, Kotvin ala, I'm sorry, yeah, it brings the Gemara, Beperek HaKometz, so from the Menachot. There's a Gemara, the Lamed Daled Amud Bet. Tanya, Kotvan ala Arba Arot. It says over there, right, you have to write it on 4 pieces of parchment. Umanichan be'arba batim, and you put it into 4 different compartments. Be'or echad, with one piece of leather. Katuv be'sefer Truma. It says in the book of Truma, Perush sheyu arba'a batim mechubarim yachad. So that means he says that all the 4 compartments have to be attached one to the other. So if you look at the tefillin of the rosh of the head, you see, right, it's 4 compartments and they're all attached, so it's like one big box. Basically, that's what it is. מאור אחד, או שמא מארבע אורות, ובלבד שיהיו תפורים זה לזה. Or he says, another possibility is that you're making it from 4 pieces of leather, and then you sew them together to make it into one piece. That's a different possibility. I think the first possibility is the superior one, right? Everybody seems to. We're going to talk about that. It's better when it's one piece. That's the best way. As he says, right? In the end, that it's proper to do from one. This is the better method. Okay, very good. So we're gonna do the Shulchan Aruch on that. I have a friend in Israel, that I studied with in the yeshiva, in the kollel, and he produces tefillin, and he has a shop in his house. He makes them. I bought from him several pairs. For me, my children, for my sons, I got a couple of them. Yeah, so I never actually went to visit it, but he makes it himself. It's very interesting. I would love
Does
to.
he do nationwide orders?
Oh, well, it's funny, because I just ordered one for my son, and he's in Israel, so he delivered it to him.
Oh,
Yeah, he delivers. I mean, he knows me. I know.
Amazon sells tefillins.
I'm sorry.
Amazon sells them. I looked it up.
Right, but the question is, what kind of quality are you getting there?
Well, I mean, they have they have anywhere from I don't know to a couple of $100 all the way to $1,500 from what I saw.
Right, I'm not talking about the money. I'm talking about the way it's made.
If it qualifies, yeah. I don't know.
So the truth is, you don't really need Amazon for that. You can go straight to the Judaica store, and they'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, the way you described it, God knows what you're getting from anyone.
Absolutely. So you should go to somebody who's reliable, like some kind of a reliable dealer, some kind of reliable.
But then again, Rabbi, that person did not see it being made, and
But he knows who made it. That's the whole thing, right? He knows.
Does a store really know who made it? I mean,
they should. That's what I'm saying. You should go to a store where they know who made that tefillin.
Yeah.
You should know who made the boxes. And they should know who made the parchments.
Yeah. All right.
A good dealer.
That's good advice then. Yeah,
for instance,
I didn't know that the seller necessarily would know who made it. If that's the case, then yeah.
For instance, if you go to Safra on Main Street, over there in our area, that place, is like very they're professional.
Yeah, I didn't know they were still around.
Right. So I would definitely recommend that more than Gift World, because Gift World, even though it's in the same area, they're not really so particular about, they're not so professional with tefillin like Safra, because Safra has a shop downstairs, and they do tefillin downstairs, they do mezuzot. So it's like, they have a sofa there that comes in, it's more like a professional place. So it's better to buy it from somebody like that than to buy it from some dealer, who just doesn't know what he's buying.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's the general rule,
Yeah.
I can help you
right.
if you when you want to do something, I can help you.
All right.
Okay, so we got yeah. Okay, so it says in the Shulchan Aruch, very short. Yaseh dalet batim me'or echad. You should make 4 compartments, as we said, right, from one leather, l'shel rosh, for the head tefillin. Ubait echad l'shel yad, and then you make also one one capsule for the arm tefillin. That's the way it's done. Okay, very simple. So now we'll go to Mem. Lamed Tet, I'm sorry. Yeah. Right, Lamed Tet, yes. So this is also an important one. We'll see the tour over here. So it says the tour, Veyu meruba'in, right? It has to be square. That's an important thing, you know? The capsules have to be square. Ushchorin also should be black. So it says, Im asan mitzeva acher ksherin. If you made it from a different color, it's kosher. You know, so if you made it like, let's say, he made it red, okay? He's got red tefillin. Did you ever see something like that? Nobody does that. But if he did, right, it would be kosher. But he says, but he says the proper way to do it is to make it black. So that's why, you know, today everybody makes it black. That's the way it is. So it says, and the ben bite the bite. There also should be an indentation, which is between each compartment. If you never notice with the head tefillin, it's indented, right? Like every 4 compartments. So that indentation shows you that it's 4 compartments there. So okay. So let's see what Yosef says about that. So says Bet Yosef, Beperka comments also in the Gemara, Lamed Hey Amud Aleph, says V'Tanya Tefillin Merubaot. So it says Tefillin has to be square. Halacha Moshe Sinai. It's an oral tradition that we have from Har Sinai. Amar Papa says our Papa B'Tifaran U'Balachsonan. So it says 2 things you need, right? That it should be the sewing and also the diagonal, right? Also should be square. In other words, it should be like really every square in every way. But the truth is, you know that he says שיהיו רבועים מכוון אורכו כרוחבו כדי שיהיה להם אותו אלכסון. Right, so he's telling you, right, they should have like a constant diagonal that goes through the square. So what does that mean? If you look on the top of the tefillin, right, where you know the top of the top side, it should be like a perfect square. The top, meaning what? That all sides are equal, you know. So then the diagonal is also equal. So that's what he's trying to say, right? It has to be like that. But when it comes to the height of the tefillin, right, it could be that it's a little bit, you know, not perfectly square. What does that mean? It could be like more like rectangular, because it could be a little bit high. So what does that mean? The height could be larger than the area on top, the sides on top. You know, so it's not a perfect cube. You know, it's not a perfect cube sometimes because the height is larger than the square. But on top, it should be like really square. That's what he's telling you. That's an important component of it, right? That's what he's saying. Okay, so then he goes on. שיהיה ריבון מכוון אורכו, כדי שיהיה להם אותו אלכסון. שאמרו חכמים, because Rabbi said in Eruvin, נון זין עמוד א', כל אמתא בריבוע, אמתא בתרי חומש באלכסונה. So he says the Rabbi said like this, right? There's a rule. When you have, going back to your geometry class, right, in high school, the good old days, right, it's telling you, right, that if the square is 1, whatever it may be, right? Then the diagonal should be inside there, should be 1 2/5. This is the ratio between the sides of the square and the diagonal. So that's the size it should be, Those are the measurements you need, the ratio, the proportions. So it says, right? It shouldn't be one side more than the other, as we said, right? Perfect square on top. So it says, even if they do have corners, it's going to be pasul anyway. What does that mean if it's not a perfect square on top? It says Tosfot, there are some who only make the bottom square, the base. ושמה צריך בתים מרובעים של ראש כשארבעתם דבוקים, לכן בית של יד ובדברי הרמב"ם מבואר פרק ג' שבתים צריך שיהיו מרובעים. So in other words, there are some who do it that way. It's not really square on the top, only on the bottom, but that's not the proper way to do it. The Rambam says it has to be totally square. שבתים צריך שיהיו מרובעים שכתב במעשה התפילין, because it says regarding the tefillin, right? לוקח עץ מרובע. You take he says like this. You take a square piece of wood, or כל כרוחבו, right? Length and width are equal. כגובהו, and also the height as well. ואם היה גובהו יותר על רוחבו, but he says as I just mentioned, he says if the height was more than the width and length, או פחות or less, אין בכך כלום. That doesn't really matter. So the height, as we said, can be a little bit different. It's okay. It can be a little bit longer, could be a little bit shorter, but the top has to be totally square. So he says the real issue is that the length and width should be exactly the same. That's the Rambam. Okay, it says the Rosh katav the full shel arba batim. So he says we take some kind of a mold, right, which has four compartments, shel Rosh for the head. The full shel yad, and also the one of the arm, also should be square, the arm one. The gam lemata bet moshavan, also below, right, at the base, they should also be square. Yehe merubah. That's what it seems also from Rashi. He says, that's what it says in Sefer Tumah. And in the Samag, so they said that it's not really a perfect proof from the halacha, that it should be needed to be totally square, when they're all four together. But he says he does prove in the Shimush Rabbah, which is a midrash, that they should be square. The kamar maite ataba tarte atzba'e al tarte etzba'e aval b'bait echad levado eno tzarich ribua. But he says when it comes to one compartment, it doesn't have to be totally square. The gam bigova, but also the height. He says, and kveda beribua. You don't have to make sure that it's really a square. As we said, it could be rectangular. Right? V'chen tefillin shel yad, also tefillin of the arm. Yeshtem din zeh, the same din applies there as well. But tzarich ribua b'tfira. Also, it says it has to be when you sew it. It has to be also square. In other words, the seam has to be square. When you sew, it has to be nice and straight and square. The seams. Okay. The katvu got b'mon. That says got b'mon like this. Ve'kimel. This is what the Mordechai says. Tefillin merubbaot halacha l'Moshe Sinai. So it says there's an oral tradition from Har Sinai that tefillin has to be square. Lichora mashma dekai agufa batim. So it seems to imply that's talking about the body of the capsules, like ben eshel yad ben eshel rosh, whether it's the head or the arm, same thing. The apuke meotam sheosim shel yad b'tfus agol. Oh, so it says this comes to exclude the ones who make the arm tefillin. They make it with a round, right? They make it round. They make a round mold. So they make the titora, the base. They make it square, but the top is like a ball, like a round. Milamata. But he says this is wrong. Why? Because the Braita, the Gemara that we mentioned, is talking about the capsules themselves. They have to be square, not only the base, which is called the Titora. B'gufa batim shehem ikar tefillin, because the main tefillin is not the base. The main tefillin is the capsule, where the parchments are. Ikar tefillin mitoch the halachot gedolot the Rif. So it says from these the Rif from this work of the Rif. Mashma deshil yad ena legamre meubat. It implies a little bit that the arm tefillin is not totally round, not totally square. The okan chatzi etzba. Why is that? Because he says that the length is like a half a finger. Ama verochban kirochav etzba. And the width is like the width of the finger. So it implies from this language, he calls it, it's really like a rectangle more, not like really a square, but they have corners. Then they have square corners, right? Right angle, as we call it, right? Right angle. So it says it's not correct. It really should be totally square. Since we don't find explicitly, so it says, and that's a halacha from the Har Sinai, as we said. It says you shouldn't be lenient about that. Make sure you make everything square there. Unless you have a clear source for if you want to do something a little bit different, make sure you got a clear source for that, because otherwise it doesn't really come out so good. Okay, good. So it says Matzati b'tshuvat Ashkenazit. I found in the Tshuva Ashkenazit, right, which is Marami Rothenburg, right? This was the rabbi of the Rosh. He was a Rebbe from Germany. It says regarding tzitzit, we hold Shem Nitko Mechute Arev Ad Shelo Nishar Kishiur, that if the strings were broken until you don't have the proper size, Minakeren from the corner, kasher, it's kosher anyway. Daniel Davka but tzitzit, that's only with tzitzit. Because it says you should make tzitzit. That means that at the time of the making it should be right. But then if it goes a little bit wrong afterwards, something happens, it's okay. But when it comes to tefillin, it's a little bit different. Why? It's an oral tradition we have. It has to be square. So therefore it has to be square all the time, right? Not partially square, I remember my rabbi used to say, he was from Iraq, originally. He was born in Iraq. So he said that the tefillin that came from there, many of them were like round, like a ball, So he says they're not kosher, those tefillin. They have to be buried, right? They're not, shouldn't use them. Okay, good. Let's see Shulchan Aruch. So says Shulchan Aruch, tefillin shel ben shel rosh ben shel yad. So he said tefillin, whether it's the arm or the head, halacha Moshe Sinai sheyu merubaot. It's an oral tradition from Har Sinai that they have to be square. The tifaran, the way you sew them, the sewing also has to be square. And also in the diagonal, as we said, right? So that means that the length and the width has to be equal. Therefore, right, this way they'll have the same diagonal inside. Shamu Chazal, because the sages said, "Kol amta berudua amta betrechum shebilachsano." So the way it works is like this, right? The sages said, geometry class, right? A little bit, right? The Avdil, that if you have one amma, if something is one amma, the square is one amma long, like 1 foot, whatever it is, right? So that means that the diagonal inside, right, will be 1 2/5. This is the ratio that comes out, as we already mentioned. But so it's also you have to make it square on the bottom as well, right? On the base of the tefillin. It should be bottom there, also there square. So the whole thing should be a square, from top to bottom, basically, right? As we said, the height can be a little bit different. A little bit longer, a little bit shorter, no problem. The gamma batim, it says also the capsules themselves have to be square. So we need three things, right? Three things have to be square. Number one is the stitching. Number two is the capsules, and number three also the what else did we say? The base, right? Yeah. So all these things have to be square. Says the Rama, our gova batim en lakpid. As we said, right? When it comes to the height, we don't care so much about that. It could be a little bit rectangular, a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, no problem. Like en lakpid. We're not someone particular. If it's more than the width of your kind of length, no big deal. So it says Maran, Asa'am merubaot. Let's say he made them square in the beginning, right? Everything was good. But then it got round, got out of shape. So if that's the case, yesh mishi omer shetzarich leraban. There is one that says that you have to now square them, So in other words, it's not good enough that you made it good in the beginning. It has to be also good now. So therefore, if it's not good, you see, right, that it's doesn't look square anymore, right? So you have to now take it into the shop and get it fixed, right? They can fix it up, no big deal. Or if they can't fix it, they'll give you a new one, right? A new capsule. So either way, right, you got to do that. Make sure that should be properly. I remember my somebody told me that Chacham Bet Yonah Bashaul, who was one of the big Sfari Chachamim, Rosh Yeshiva Parat Yosef. He said that they said about him that he was very medaktek. He was very particular about this. So what he used to do was that every year, he would send in his capsules of the Tefillin to have them squared. Make sure that they're square. The square is still intact. So that's what he used to do. You're not really obligated to do that according to halacha. As long as you see that it looks like a square, you're good, But he was very, very, very. He was very pious about that. Okay. So says Nerama, Haga v'yaseh kol dalet batim b'shaveh. So he says, make all the four compartments in the tefillin of the head, make them all equal. Shelo yeh echad gadol b'chavero. One shouldn't be bigger than the other. It doesn't look nice like that, right? It really loses its aesthetic. So it really should be each one equal, just the way it looks nice, aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Otherwise, it looks like a mess. Okay, so that's that. Very good. Let's go to Mem. So we're gonna do the tour first. Shchorim. We already did, actually. We read it. So it says like this, right? That also they have to be black, as we said. They should be black. But if he made it from a different color, it's kosher. But as we said, right, the proper way is to make it black. The Perek comments, that's what it says in this Perek in the Gemara again. Regarding what we said, the Tzurot Shechorot Halachala Moshe Sinai. Right, you have to have black. The straps also have to be black. This is also oral tradition that we have. It says the Gemara. Right, Katva Tosfot. By the way, you see David from here. I want to just play to you something. That all these things that we do, the Tefillin, these are all traditions. So if we didn't have that tradition, the written Torah, we wouldn't know what Tefillin means. You know what I mean? That's why the oral tradition is very crucial. Otherwise, you don't really have a Torah without that. You understand? One complements the other. Otherwise, you don't. What does it say? What does it say in the Torah? Put them on your head. Put them on your arm. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what you're putting. You don't know what it is. You know what it looks like. You know nothing about it. So that's why, right? The oral tradition is a very important thing in Judaism. Otherwise, you're not doing so well. Up the creek, as they say. Up the creek. Somewhere. Okay, whatever. Not doing so well. Okay, so as we said, right, that כתוב תוספות, says תוספות, יש עושים, says there are those who make בתים של תפילין, the capsules of תפילין, מאור לבן, they make it white. They make it white. דלא נאמר שחורות אלא ברצועות, because black was only said regarding the straps. לכן כתב העגור, that's what it says in העגור, בשם רשב"א, name רשב"א, לכן כתב הראש, וכתב עוד, so there was some, opinions that said that the capsules should be white. Very interesting. וכתב עוד מכל מקום, נוי תפילין שיהיה הכל שחור. But he says, nevertheless, even though you can make it like that, you can make it white, as we said, right? You can make it into a different color. But the real beauty of the tefillin, it should be black. Is that it should be black. But Sefer Tumah, so it says in Sefer Tumah, רצועות שחורות הלכה על משה מסיני. So it says black straps is הלכה from הר סיני. ושבע גם כן אור הבתים צריך להיות שחור. So it says perhaps also the leather of the capsules has to be black. Mordechai says shedikdik ri, that the ri learned from the Gemara she'ktzitza bainan shachor, that the capsules have to be black, as we said. So just like the straps. So therefore, right, you see that the prevailing opinion is that the it should also be black, the capsules. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. Let's go on. So it says, we'll see the Gemara on this. I'm sorry, we'll see the Shulchan Aruch. There's still a little bit more before we go to Shulchan Aruch. There's still more Bet Yosef. So it says like this. Also, right, as we said, the creases in the head tefillin has to be recognizable between each compartment, right? There's a crease. So you know how many compartments you have. You can count them. You can see them. So it says, Amar Abaye, it's also same Gemara there. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, Tzarich sheyagia charitz lemakom hatefer. So he says, he says another thing. The Gemara says that those creases have to go all the way down to the sewing, right? In other words, down to the bottom. They have to reach all the way down. It should be like only partially on the capsules, all the way up and down, from top to bottom. Rabbi says, but Rabbi says you don't really need it. As long as you can see it, right, it's visible. You don't have to go, it doesn't have to go all the way down. Two different opinions over here. Rashi explains that we said, right, ad makom tefer. But he says, the Rashi, that means that those creases have to go all the way to the bottom of the tefillin, the matak lomar ad bet moshavo, until the base. Dainu titora, which is the titora called. It's called the titora. The Rosh Katav sheyesh mefarshim. So it says, the Rosh says that there are those who explain shecharit shel shin, that the crease of the shin, which is on the side of the tefillin of the head, dainu chuda, which is like the edge of it, shel shin lemata, below yagiad ichu yatefer. It also should come to the bottom until the sewing. So it says, it seems like this is correct. So it says the custom is like both these explanations, both these descriptions. So the chuma. So he says, therefore we should be machmir, we should be stringent, and therefore the creases and also the shin should go all the way to the bottom of the tefillin until the base. Like Abaya says, not like Rav Dimi, Ad Kana Shano. Okay, Katav Rambam says the Rambam שאם לא היה חריץ מגיע למקום התפר, look what Rambam says, right? If the crease doesn't go all the way down to the sewing, to the bottom, kasher, it's kosher. It's kosher, b'diavad. והוא שיהיה ניכר החריץ, but it has to be recognizable, like the opinion of Rav Dimi. כדי שיהיו 4 ראשים, in order that there should be 4 compartments, there should be all recognizable, 4 compartments. To everybody. But Tamo, Miditanya, what's the reason why he says it this way? Because it says in the Braita, that Kometz also there, in the Gemara there, Lamadal Lamudet, V'im en Charitzan Nekar, that if the crease is not recognizable, Pesulot, then it's Pasul. You can't even see it, it's not visible. Right? Mashma dechol shemu nekar kasher. So it implies from there that if it's recognizable, it's kosher. So therefore, it says the Rambam, even if it doesn't go all the way to the bottom, it's kosher anyway. Bechol gavne. V'im ken, if so, he says, Ki amar Abaye tzarich sheyagia charitz lemakom hacheter. So he says, if so, that when Abaye said that it has to go all the way down to the part, the base, the sewing, the mitzvah, that's the proper way to do the mitzvah, the best way to do the mitzvah. Im ken, if so, but it doesn't hold it back. In other words, it's not going to be pasul because of that. And even though Mordechai, he had a doubt about this, but the Rambam is clear to him. It's clear to him, right? That what? That as long as they're recognizable and they don't go down to the bottom, it's still kosher. But the best way he agrees is they should go all the way to the bottom. Creases. And the shin, as we said, right? Okay, very good. So that's go to Shulchan Aruch now, to Mem, and recap this whole thing. Okay, so says Shulchan Aruch, one second, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Says Shulchan Aruch, or abatim, the leather of the capsules, mitzvah asato shachor. First of all, you should make it black, right? The capsules, as we said, even though it's kosher, if it's another color, right? But nevertheless, the best thing to do is to make it black. It says also the creases, as we said, which are the creases which are between the compartments, they should really go down to the sewing, the base. But if it doesn't go down there, it's kosher. Right? But it has to be recognizable at least by that much. People have to be able to see that. So that people can see the 4 compartments there, the whole to everybody. So anybody who looks at it can see it. You know, it's readily visible. Okay, very good. So that's the Shulchan Aruch there. Pretty simple stuff, pretty straightforward, but very important, very crucial for the Tefillin, these things. Okay, so now we'll go to Mem Aleph 41. So it says the tour. Now it tells you how you make it, the capsules. So it says like that's the tour. The Choyaseh ikach tefus shel etz. So it's this way you got to make it. Take a mold made out of wood. Sheyeh merubah, it should be square. Ribua gamur, totally square, 100% square, right? Barachson, also with the diagonal as well. Rokok rochbo, and length and width are equal. Then shiur meforash the Talmud. So he says in the Talmud, doesn't give you a size that the tefillin has to be, you know, regarding the length and width. Doesn't give you a size, but you know, it has to be equal. That's all we care about, really. Right? As we said, it shouldn't be too big, because if you make it too big, you know, it'll be already not in the right place. So, and also making it too small is not so good. Why? Because you have to make the parshiot very small, parchments. They're going to be written poorly like that. So that's you know, so you want to make it like a mid-size, you know, not too big, not too small. But technically speaking, there's no boundaries, when it comes to that. So there's no like size which is brought down. There's a tradition. Mid-size is good, like if you ever look like the Tefillin of Chabad, they make them very large. So I would say, there's no reason to make it that large. Should make it like a normal size. In Israel, they make them like smaller, not big like Chabad. They don't make them like that. And then that's the proper way to do it. There's no reason to make them so large. But there is one shita, one opinion of the Shimush Rabbah. There's a midrash. If you make it according to that opinion, Shimush Rabbah, then the custom is to make it large, because that's according to that midrash has to be large. But according to halacha that we have, it's not supposed to be large like that. There's no reason to make it like that. Anyway, it says right, so there's no sizes we said that was mentioned in Talmud. Look at Shimush Rabbah, right? As we said, this is exactly what I told you. So he says it should be. He says that each of the 4 compartments should be 2 by 2 fingers. So that will mean that it has to be 4 by 4 centimeters. Right? And he says the custom is not like that. But he says the custom is not to have a certain size like that. Also the height, the chokek, in other words, we're not particular about the height either. The chokek b'tfus gimel chalitzin. So this is what you do is you engrave into the mold 3 increments, right? Those grooves. You put some grooves in there, right? 3 grooves. So he says the depth is going to be like the width of the parshiot, of the parchments, because each, right, as we said, each one of these indentations should go from one compartment to the other, to all the way down to the place of the sewing. Or dak. So then he says he takes like a thin leather, okay, mibehema, from an animal, chayar, some kind of animal, as we said, kosher animal, teorah, umerakecho. So what he does is he softens it, umartivo, and then he moistens it, with water, he puts it onto the mold. So that's how it's made. You understand? There's like a wooden mold, and you put the leather around it, so therefore it takes that shape of the mold, and then the mold is removed. That's the way it goes. Oh, hayat Torah. And he puts inside also inside the grooves. Ad sheityavesh, and then it gets dry. Eat kasher, and it becomes hard. That's what happens, right? That's why tefillin is so hard, because this process makes it hard when it dries. So he says when it's still moist, then you got to make that shin on the side, boletet, right, which is sticking out of the tefillin, protruding, mikamateha or, which comes from the wrinkles of the leather. Echad mimino, one from the right, one from the left. Shel smolo, on the left side, shehu yamin, which is the right akore, which is right of the reader. Perush haomed lenegdo, the one who's standing in front of him. Yasela arba rashim. So there it should be 4. It should have 4 legs. The shin, right over there. That one. On the right side, Yasela shalosh rashim. On the right side, you make 3 legs. So one shin is going to be with 4 legs. The other shin is going to be with 3 legs. So since once then the leather dries and gets hard, on the mold, then you remove the mold, right? You can't leave it there. It's not supposed to be there, right? You just use it to make the shape. Yeah, that's the way it works, וישארו כמין 4 בתים. So then you're going to have like the 4 compartments, והשinin and all the shins, ימשוך למטה, you pull them down, עד שיגיע חליץ השין, until the groove of the shin goes, ותחתיתו, on the bottom, עד מקום התפר, until the sewing. והאור של הדפוס יניח ארוך מצד אחד. So he says the leather of the sewing, you place it on one side, ויחפלנו על הבתים, and then you're going to fold it over on the capsules. And then you sew it. Ima or anishar, with the leather which is left over, from 3 sides of the the compartments. Over mikol sad, going from every side. The hu anikra titora, that's going to be called titora. It's the base. The base is called titora. So he says that from that leather that he leaves it long, from one side, he's going to make that little passageway for the straps. That's called ma'avarta. Kitzad, how do you do it? You cut that passageway, from 2 ways, from 2 sides. It shouldn't be wide, like the titora itself. It should be a little bit less, a little bit more narrow. In order that you should be able to see the square of the titora, the base. And it says that passageway, that's where you put your straps in there and pass them through. So this way you can hook them up there with the straps. That's why it's called ma'abarta, right? Which means like a passageway, like a, right? And the strap goes through there, from one side to the other. Or ab. So he says, but there are some who take like a thick leather, the chazak, and like very strong, the koflinoto lishnaim. They fold it into 2. The chotchin bechefel elyon. Then they cut the upper fold, nikeb beruba, like a square hole. Ifi ribua batim, like the squareness of the capsules. Umachnisin bua batim, and then they put the capsules in there. And the one is whatever stays in the leather, hadak, the thin leather, shirabatim, the capsules, from 4 sides. Poshtimoto, then they stretch it out, like one to the other, one side to the other side. Ben shnei kfalim, between the 2 folds, shel of the leather, which is thick. Tofrinoto, and then they tie it up, they sew it up. Imahem, with them. That's called titora. Or it says from that leather, which is thick, osin gama ma'avarta. They make the ma'avarta, the passageway also with that. The tov lasot ken. So he says it's good to make this way. So it's why? Because since you make it thick, the chazak and strong, mitkayem bet moshav tefillin. So then the base of the tefillin will last. Everything will last. The whole thing will last. We'll hold it up. By the way, I've seen this from experience. You should know that when you make the tefillin, the leather of the capsules, when you make it like flimsy and thin, it always gets distorted and warped. But when you make it nice and thick, it holds up very, very well. So that's exactly what they try to do today. The good quality tefillin, by the way, is always like nice and thick and massive. So this way it doesn't get bent out of shape. That's the whole thing. That's the trick, It costs a little bit more, but believe me, it's worth it because it definitely lasts longer and just holds up better. Okay, very good. Let's see the bit Yosef. So it says like this, what Yosef. Hakol hu lashon harosh. He says all comes from the rosh. All this language that the 2 wrote. Beseder Tikkun HaTefillin in this book, Second Tefillin. ומה שכתב ריבוע גמור מלאכסון, now which he said it has to be also like totally square, כלומר לאורך אמתא בריבוע אמתא מתראה, because that he said that, as we said, that has to be that one on the side is going to be 1 2/5 on the diagonal. כתב שם עוד שרי דקדק תשיעור רוחב התפילין. So the Re said it was that the length, the size of the width of the tefillin, however, לכל הפחות יותר מאצבע. It has to be at least 1 finger, right? In other words, this is the minimum, he says. It should be 2 centimeters, not less than that. ואם לא היו רחבות אלא אצבע, because if it's not that much, אם כן יש מקום בראש ולהניח 3 תפילין. So then there will be enough room on the head to put 3 tefillin, right? And we said that there's 2. Then why do we learn in the Gemara Eruvin, that there's room enough for 2, right? If you make it that small, it's going to be room enough for 3. Okay, good. So he says shemachnisan zug zug. I'm sorry. So then why does it teach that you can, in the Gemara Eruvin, you can, if you find lost tefillin in the street on Shabbat, you can bring them in pair by pair by wearing them, right? Pair by pair. Why? You can put 2 on, because there's enough room for 2. But Rosh Hashanah, not 3. It doesn't say 3. That means there's only room for 2. So it says, what about the reason of the Shimush Rabbah, which he gave a size, minimum size? Since we say that there's enough room to put 2 tefillin on the head, the tzitaya rochav, and it says the tzitz, the headband of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, the width was it's about 2 fingers, and it was placed in the place of tefillin. And his hair was visible between the headband and the hat he had. And that's where he put the tefillin. So therefore it comes out, it makes sense that place of tefillin, it was 2 fingers, that was the size. Just like the width of the tzitz, of the headband. He says nowadays, wow, look what he says, right? Nowadays he says, we don't make it wide that much, 2 fingers, which is 4 centimeters. It's not really a lot. Why? Because he says the base are going to be wide. Because if the batim, the capsules were 2 fingers, which is, as we said, 4 centimeters, besides the titora, and then the passageway, he's not going to have enough room to put 2 tefillin. Right? That's why people who do put the tefillin, as we said, right, they have to make the tefillin very small. And today we don't do it this way. Most people don't do it this way. So he says we find in the perk of this Gemara, the im hatitora. It says with the titora, the base, and the passageway for the strap, yesh makom berosh leaniach shte tefillin. There's still enough room on the head to put 2 tefillin. So therefore they shouldn't be too big. Right? That's why the custom is not to make them too big. Says so it says therefore they make the length and the width without any limitations. The gam govhan, also their height ad kanashano. Katav Mordechai, says Mordechai, B'Shem Rabbeinu Shimshon, name Rabbeinu Shimshon. Sheyesh le'achamir b'davar. It says you should be machmir, should be stringent. Acharei shelo nitbaer hashiur. Since in Talmud there is no size given for the tefillin. Mipia Talmud. So it says therefore you have to go according to tradition, as we see in the Shimush Rabbah. So he says we should also be concerned with the words of the Geonim. The Samag, and also the Samag, the Tumah. So what do they say? They said that the width should be the capsules 4 centimeters. This is a good size. Today, by the way, they make them a little bit larger, especially Chabad, as we said. Right? Chabad makes them, they make them like humongous, It's really too much. There's no reason to make it that big. Okay, so Kedeta B'Shima Sharabah, Velo Nagu Ken. But it says that custom is not like that. V'zela Shona Itu. That's language Itu. Tiktib B'Shimush Rabah, the Shel Rosh Maite A'at. So he says when it says in the Shimush Rabbah But when it comes to the head tefillin, you bring a wood, right? As we said, which is 2 centimeters. I'll tell you it's by 2 by 2. That's the mold, right? You got your mold there. And he says the arm, the length is going to be chatzi orka detzba. It's going to be like half the length of the finger, uputia, and 1/2, dide 1/2, kiputia detzba, like to me, Allah says we don't, says we don't hold by these things, all these measurements. So he says really, it's more reasonable, like what the Rif says, Rabbi Alfasi. So he says really the truth is they didn't make any measure for the height. There's no fixed measure. If he wants to make it like perfectly cube, to have the same height as the length and width, or less, or yoter, or more, yes, they can do, right? Whatever, as we said, right? That we're not so particular about the height. So it says in the Orchat Chaim, after he brought the words of Tosfot, Katab the he wrote that it says the Rav Haid Katab Defus Shel Tefillin and no Shiur. So he says Rav Hai says that when it comes to the mold of the tefillin, there's no size really. There's no standard size. Some make it like 3 fingers height, 6 centimeters. And some do more, some do less. So the custom of he says the big rabbis, since they're putting it on, in the open, and they're praiseworthy to place them like that. So therefore they put them a little bit higher. A little bit more than 3 fingers of height. So that's what the rabbi says in our town does also, like that, the Geonim. But he says when it comes to a student before his rabbi, that he shouldn't really show his tefillin in front of him. Then they put small tefillin, like 3 centimeters. Under their hats. It's proper manners like that. Why? Because they shouldn't show their tefillin in front of their rabbi. They shouldn't equate themselves to their rabbi. Why? Because tefillin is like honor, it's an honorable thing. So you don't want to be honorable in front of your rabbi. That's what it says. That everybody should see that the name of God is called upon you when you're wearing tefillin. But Tanya, it says in Braita, Rabbi Eliezer Gadol Omer, that this rabbi says, Elu tefillin shel, that's talking about the tefillin of the head. So that's what people see, and they see that you're connected to God. They see the sign of God upon you, and they see the tefillin of the head on you. Okay, very good. Let's see Shulchan Aruch. That was 41, Mem Aleph. Very short one, right? So it says, what's the length and the width of the capsules, the goban, and the height? Enoshu doesn't really have a standard size. So as we said, right, some people make it a little bit smaller, some people make it a little bit bigger, right? But as we already saw, right, don't go to the extremes. Don't make it too big, don't make it too small, because otherwise it's not going to come out good. Something that could cause all kinds of issues. So therefore, the proper thing is to make it like a normal size. Not exactly, like it doesn't have to be exactly to a certain size, but within the range of normal. Otherwise, you got issues going on. Okay, whatever. That's that. So maybe we can do one more. Let's see if we have time. Membet 42. Okay, so yeah. So says Bet Yosef over here. Perka comments. This is also right. What the Torah said. When they're still moist, you got to make those shins, on the left and right of the tefillin of the head, which are sticking out, right? They're protruding. The Perka comments. That's where it's in the Gemara. Same Gemara. Tamid Yamud Aleph. The Gemanachot. Amar Abaye says Abaye shin shel tefillin halakha Moshe Sinai. Also, the shin of the tefillin There's also oral tradition that we have from Har Sinai. Katvat Tosfot, says Tosfot, B'Shem Shimush Rabbah, name of Shimush Rabbah. The Shin, the Yamina, so it says the Shin of the right side, Talat Reshe. You should have 3 legs. The Smala and the left one, Arba, should have 4. 4 Reshe, 4 heads. The Iafich Let Lanba. So if he made it the opposite, it's okay, it's kosher anyway. Right? Katav Rosh, the Amina the Smala, the Maniach Kamar. So he's talking, it says the Rosh is talking about the right and the left of the person who's placing it. My right, right? Not your right, my right. Usmana the Mana. V'chen Katav Mordechai, that's what it says also Mordechai. The Manhig also Manhig. V'chen Katav Rambam, that's what it says in Rambam. V'chen Katuv B'Sefer HaTumah, that's what it says in Sefer HaTumah. Umash Katav Nimuk Yosef, that which says Nimuk Yosef, Shin Shel Tzad Yamin, that the Shin of the right side, He Shel Arba Rashim. And it should be the one which is with the 4 heads. The Shel small and the left one, Shel Shlosha Rashim, it should be 3 heads. Tzarich Lomar, the Yamin, the small, the Koreh Kamar. He must have been talking about the right and the left of somebody who's looking at you from the opposite side. That's what it says in Samag. Amar Abaye says Abaye Shin Shel Tefillin Halacha LaMoshe Sinai. That the Shin of the Tefillin is an oral tradition, as we said, from Har Sinai, from Moshe Rabbeinu. Yaseh mi'amin hakoreh. You should make it on the right side. The kemet or the fus. You make it with the you wrinkle the right. You carve it out with the leather. The fusabite shin with the mold. Shin. You may do like a shin. Also from there and there, the Amina Tlat Reshe, the one from the right side should be 3, the Shema this Arba Reshe, and the left side should be 4. Perush Shnei Yudin Yaseh Betocha, that means that you should make 2 yuds inside. Kedita v'Shimush Rabbah, like it says in Shimush Rabbah. The Katav v'Sifrei Adfus al Zeh. So it says in some books, it says regarding this, Ve'ani Hanakdan Omer. Uman לעשות תפילין קשה בעיניי פירוש זה. So he says, I don't agree with this explanation. של שני יהודים, to 2 yuds. לפי שהטעם, according to the reasoning that ששמעתי, says that I heard, על שני שינים, on 2 shins, מתלת רשת, 3 heads, ומארבע רשת, from 4 heads, שהוא כנגד שני כתיבות, which is corresponding to 2 writings. שיש לנו, that we have, Katav Luchot, which is one is the tablets, right, of the 10 Commandments. The Katav Sefer Torah, and also the way it's written in Sefer Torah. Katav Luchot hayad mikitiba shokat. So he says when it comes to the tablets, it was like engraved inside the tablets, the writing. Shenema, as it says, it was engraved. Charut ala Luchot, as it says in the pasuk like this. Harei shekol haotiyot hayu mina avir. So it says, you see from there that all the letters were like from the air. It turns out that the shin has 4 legs, whatever. The shalosh avirot and 3 air spaces in between them. He shin ale arba shin. That's called the shin of the 4 heads. Shel kamatim, which is made from engraving, right? Not engraving, but the other way. It sticks out, right? Yeah. But now says shin mishalosh avirot. You make a shin from 3 air spaces. If there was 2 yuds over there, shin, then it won't be a shin. Because the middle head has to go all the way. Has to go all the way down to the bottom. And the writing, when it comes to Sephardi writing, the way the Sephardim do it. Okay. And so it says the other side, which is going down. It's also sticking out, protruding. The second one, the left side. So it says that the Sefer Torah that was written by Moshe Rabbeinu, which was sticking out, right, on the protruding on the parchment. So he says, therefore, the shin of the 4 heads can get shin shel Kodesh. It's Kadesh. It's going to be corresponding to the shin of Kadesh. This parsha, this parchment. Rishonah, that's the first one. The batim of the parchments of the compartments. Kemosh katav luchot just like he wrote the tablets first before the Torah, before the Sefer Torah. The Od Shehu Katab. So furthermore, he writes. Okay, I guess we'll stop there. I guess this is going on long. Let me just see how long this is. It's going. Oh no, actually, we could finish it. You can wait a couple of minutes. Oh, it's up to you. Okay, whatever. So. Okay, we'll do it next time.
No, let's finish it. It's a little bit left, no?
Okay, you got it. Okay, if you can handle it, I can handle it.
Yes.
If you're happy, I'm happy.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. So it says like this, right? Right. So I'll just come back. Okay, so as we said, right, that it's also the writing of the creator. Ra'ui liot rishon should be first. That's why he says I accepted. I learned from all my teachers like this. He says, "Ki kadesh keneged shin, the arbara shin." The kadesh, the first parchment, is corresponds to the four heads. If we like the author, he says Neymar shekatav aluchot, that it was written that he wrote the tablets ad yamin hamaniach, on the right side of the one who places it. So it says, but I have a tradition that we're not really concerned about that. So therefore, if he reversed it and did 4 over here and 3 over here, or 3 over here and 4 over there, it's kosher anyway. Says in Orchot Chaim. Says therefore we make the shin more than the other letters, because we want to allude to this illusion. What's the illusion? That a person, the days that he places them, in the year, Shem Shin, which is 300. Oh wow, that's interesting. 300 days of the year. Katab all these Zahir says also, he writes there, you should be careful. You shouldn't make the shin with the mold. Because if you made it like that, you didn't fulfill his obligation. That would be like writing without writing, from by way of erasure, right? You're not doing it by writing. So it says Rabbi Yonah. The Rashba also. Rambam says from the words of Rambam Rosh, Rabbeinu, and also Rabbeinu the Torah. So he said, it seems like we should make a deduction. Deduce. That they didn't say that they should make the shins from the mold. So he says, I heard that the Ashkenazim are careful about that. So he says that they wrinkle the leather, right, by folding it, some kind of a tool, right? That folds the leather until they become like the shin, and so this way you're like writing and not, making it by writing it. But I don't know how Gimel says our custom is that we actually do make the shins from the mold. With the mold, the gum also says he also says that there are some who say not concerned about that. So see what people do. In other words, see what the custom is. The custom is to be lenient about that. That's what he's trying to say. This rabbi says, so he says the proper reason, the shin shel tefillin. What's the proper reason for the shin of the tefillin? Why do we put the shin there? Shin, because he says the word, the 4-letter name of God, right? If you do atbash, which is like a system of switching one letter to the other, right? It goes to the value of shin, numerical value. Matzpatz. That's what comes out to be like this. So he says the only thing which is seen on the outside, sticking out, is the shin, and that's exactly what they have to see, whatever. Okay, so in other words, he's saying, right, that the proper this is the reason why they do the shin of the tefillin. Okay, interesting. Let me see Shulchan Aruch, how big it is here. Okay, so we'll just read the Shulchan Aruch. We'll sum it up, right? The summary. Shin shel tefillin. The shin of the tefillin, halacha Moshe Sinai. It's an oral tradition from Moshe Sinai. Sheaseh beor batim shel rosh. That it should be made from the leather of the capsules of the head. Kamin shin, like a shin, boletet, which is sticking out, protruding. Right? Not engraved. It has to be protruding. Right? Mikamateh or from the wrinkles of the leather. Achat mimino, achat mismalo. One on the right side and one on the left side. Shel yamin maniach. Right? The right side of the person who places it. Right, my right, the one who places the tefillin, shel gimel rashim. It should be 3 legs. The shel small, the left one, right, hamaniach, the person who places it, shel arba. It has to be 4 legs. It says the Rama, but it says eno pasul himself. If you switched it, you reversed it, it's not pasul, it's kosher. So okay, so basically that's pretty much the rundown of what we said. Okay, Chazak Baruch, thanks for coming tonight. God bless you with wealth, health, and happiness. It's not easy, this material, but there's definitely a big reward for learning all this stuff and having the patience, in this world and the
Thank
world
you
to
so
come.
much. Yes.
Oh,
God bless you. Chazak Baruch. All the blessings. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.